When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me special guest, Jake Gerstenberger. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
Man, that's good. That's good to know. It's so great to have you on the show, man. We've connected on social media, and I've seen you running some races, and I'm running some races. Your races are a lot bigger than my races. So you're a 100-mile ultra marathon runner. You own your own landscape company down in Missoula, Montana. So you're creating greatness out in the field. I put the special Minecraft background on just for you because I wanted to see the pruning of those bushes and make sure they were all nice tight squares, nothing rounded. And I'm just so excited to have you on the call. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, David. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I got to know, first and foremost, what makes you want to run a 100-mile ultra marathon?
You know, we all have different desires inside of us, and it sort of takes different things or different keys to unlock those desires. I tend to just be a more extreme person. I get motivated by people doing things that either haven't been done or not done frequently. I like blazing the new path, so to speak. I threw shot put when I was in college, and I was always kind of a bigger weightlifter type guy. And I remember when I was all conference my first year in the shot put, I thought, man, it'd be super cool to run a marathon and like round it out and just be an athlete. And that always kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And through creating the business and all those other things, it just kind of, I didn't have time for it, or I told myself I didn't have time for it. And I remember I was sitting on the couch and I was watching that, I think it's called 14 Peaks or 13 Peaks documentary about the Nepalese gentleman that does all of the 10,000 meter peaks in 7 months.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, there's something in me. I have to do something. I don't know what. And then I kind of fell into David Goggins. And I was like, if these people can do these things and they're possible, then why can't I do it? And 1 year later, I finished my first 100-mile ultramarathon.
Wow. So it only took 1 year from, checking out Goggins, seeing what these folks are doing, climbing the peaks, to run a 100-mile race.
Yep, that was the goal, and we got it done.
That's incredible. Did you start with a regular marathon first, or did you? I mean, what was that? What was that like?
So, again, it's one of those things where, and not to downplay it, because marathons are amazing and they're just their own thing. I actually think they're harder because they're faster and there's so much a different expectation. Like some of the races that you're doing, it's like there's an expectation to run as much as you can. Whereas the ultras, there's a little bit more mental preparation that happens there. It's as much in your mind as it is on your body. And for me, it was just one of those things where like that had to be the goal, the psychotic, top of the bar. The end goal had to be bigger. But, I'm not a runner. And I think that the furthest I'd ever ran was 3 or 4 miles at that point. So I had to kind of break it down. And I trained for the Lake Mead Marathon in just outside of Las Vegas. And I think I trained for 4 months and ran that. And 3 months later, I ran the Salt Flat Endurance Run in Wendover, Nevada. Or actually, that's Bonneville, Utah, technically. Ran the 50-mile there. Did really well. I was super impressed with my performance. I think I bested what I was going for by an hour. And then I had already signed up for the Oregon Cascade 100 at that point. Like, I knew I was doing it. And I just trained and trained and trained. And the date came up and had a really, really great race. And as soon as that one was over, I think I signed up for the next one that night.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Any moment in that race where you're like, dude, I can't do this. I'm done.
So the race in Oregon, the Cascade race, I'm always unsupported. It's just part of my I like the idea of running from point A, point B, just completely by myself, even with no race, just completely unsupported. It just feels like you did it yourself. In this particular race, I had a buddy come with me who's also a contractor. He does all of our, pergolas and handyman type stuff. And he happens to also be an ultra runner. And I had him come be sort of my singular crew person. Well, he was supposed to meet up with me at mile 33, but I was quite a ways ahead of where I was supposed to be. So I showed up to 33 and I have none of my stuff. And they were calling for freezing temperatures that night. And I remember blowing through aid station 3 at mile 33 and taking off, and I felt amazing. But I didn't have new socks. I didn't have a coat at all of any kind. I knew it was going to kind of be a rough night. I had a space blanket. And I forgot to take some salt tablets, and that wasn't registering, but I went hypothermic at about midnight-ish, I think. Wow. I'd sweat, and I put my coat on, and then I'd pull it off, and I was freezing, David. I was like, I might die up here. It was definitely in the back of my mind. I was on the phone with my buddy, and he was like, do you want me to get emergency people? And I was like, let me try one last thing. And I stripped butt naked, and I wrapped my naked body in my space blanket.
Yep.
Then I put my clothes back on over it, and just took every little bit of everything I could. I think I had some extra socks on my hands or something like that, and I just took off, and I made it to the next 52-mile aid station. And I was shaking so bad that they were like, until you stop convulsing, you can't leave.
Wow.
Stood around this little heater for about a half an hour and just got myself warmed up. And that was the point where, I was just like, I'm not leaving here. This is over. I'm done. There's no possible way. It's only mile 50. And I don't know why I looked down at my legs and they were just like rock hard. And I remember just thinking, dude, the transformation that you've put yourself through, the things you've been through, the things you've done, the runs you've finished. I was remembering this night run that I did over the course of my cousin's birthday. We floated all day, and then I drove up to a mountain pass and run 36 miles all night, and then came home and went to his birthday party. And I was just kind of channeling these things that I'd completed, and wrapped myself back up. And I said, I'm not shaking anymore. I'm ready to go. And they let me go. And that last 50 miles was, I don't know how to explain it, but like 10 miles in, it was almost like God said, here's your legs back. Here's your strength back. And it was all downhill, so to speak, from there.
Wow. That's an incredible story. That is incredible. You're running, you're ahead of pace. You're at 33. You get there. Your buddy's not there because you're ahead of time. You decide to keep blazing. You get into a hypothermic situation. You're sick. You're to the point where, hey, we may have to call the medevac in. Mm-hmm. You wrap up in the space blanket. You're completely naked. You get to the next day, you said at mile 52 or whatnot, 53, whatever it was. You get kind of rejuvenated, better, re-warmed up. You play the track back in your head. God's with you, and the next 50 miles are downhill.
Yeah.
What a correlation to business. Like, we build a business, we get going great, we get a little bit out over our skis.
Yep.
We gotta pull it back and say, oh my goodness, I'm in a little bit of trouble here. I got a little bit bigger than I wanted to, a little too fast.
Yep.
There's a moment where you're saying to yourself, I'm not going to make it. You keep pushing through, and it's like it's downhill. Like, what a correlation to business, what a correlation to life, marriage, everything.
Yep.
You know, everything in life can translate to that ultramarathon run. I mean, that's what I heard.
100%. And I think about it that way all the time. You know, the run that I actually did after that one, it was in, it's called the Lean Horse Ultra in Valley of Fire State Park, just north of Vegas. And I tore my meniscus at mile 3.
Oh.
And I know, dude, it was going, though. It was bad, and I was having problems with it for a while. Everybody told me not to run. They're like, if you do, you'll be 6 months. But it sounds dumb. I had to go do one like that. I'll never do that again, but I had to go do one like that and just like see what I was made of. And it took me 31 hours, but I finished it. And it was one of the most brutal things that I've ever went through. Like, none of the positive stuff was there. It was all just fighting. But I remember coming home and thinking, what am I going to get out of this one? You always get something. You always get something out of it. And I didn't feel like I got anything out of that one. It was just horrible. And then I sat there and I thought, if I can finish that, if I can walk my way through that, drag myself, I think I lost 25% of both of the skin on both the bottoms of my feet. It was disgusting, you know, just wrapped up, bandaged up, and I'm, you know, pus and blood, and, you know, I got 60 miles left to go or whatever. But I just felt like after that, there was no limits to what I could achieve. You know, you go look at a job and you're like, can I do this job? And it's like, hell yeah, I can do this job. You know, you still want to think about what's good for you and what's right for you, and not jump into something that you don't want to be doing. But in terms of having the ability and the drive and the desire to navigate all the things that you need to navigate to make it happen, I just feel like that I can do anything I want now.
And that's true. I mean, I love that. I love the yeah, man, I just love that approach. I love that you have this no quit desire. So, ultramarathon, what is the time limit that this is normally happening in? Is it 25 hours, 30 hours? Did you, at the one where you finished at 31, was that a completion time, or were you outside of the mandatory time frame, or?
They're all different, and a lot of it's based on like the Leadville 100 in Leadville, Colorado. It's all over 10,000 feet. That one, it's like an extra hour on everything because it's so awful. So they're all a little bit different, but I will say that most 100s have a cutoff time of like usually 32 to 36 hours is the cutoff time. So a 31-hour cutoff on that particular race, I mean, I think I still finished like 20th place or somewhere like half in the pack, you know, because so many people drop out or just ran their first one or whatever. But that's definitely toward the tail end. That's a slower, and even for me, that's a slower race. I did Oregon. Oregon was 100 miles, 10,000 feet up, 11,000 feet down. I was at aid station with hypothermia for 3.5 hours, and I ran that one in 27.5 hours.
Wow.
So, and
what are you clocking per mile? What are you running? What are you running? Is it 15-minute mile, 14-minute mile? Where are you at in there?
Oregon, I think, was 13, or no, Oregon was 15 average. But that's the thing, you know, it's like I said, I was at that one aid station for 3 hours. If you look at my Strava, you'll see on the backside of the mountain, there was this beautiful drop where you're running down towards Sisters. That was like 7s, 8s, 9s, you know. It really just depends. Like when I take off and I start, I usually am like 12, 11, you know, just like trying to kind of zone 2, keep going. And then when you start feeling it further out, like you'll get little jolts of energy. That's when you're like, I'm going to run now, and you'll run 10 miles at like 8-minute mile, clip. So it's just kind of all over the place. It depends on how you feel, but usually like a 12 to 15-minute mile average is what I end up getting on a 100-mile race.
Wow, that's incredible. So did you work with a coach on this, or did you just do some research and figure it out on your own?
So I started off, I just printed off some marathon plans, and ultramarathon plans that were online, just found some Google image things and started with that. And then after Lean Horse, so after I ran all these races, actually, I started talking to a woman named Kelsey in Oregon. She's a coach, and her and I worked together for about a month and a half. And then I herniated a disc in December, and it pinched both nerves on both sides. I have skeletal stenosis, neuropathy, all that kind of stuff. So I actually lost feeling, about 60% of the feeling in my right leg, all of January and February. So I've been doing neuropathy, PT, and my right leg's quite a bit smaller than my left leg now. So I've been doing like a bunch of, off-kilter strength training type stuff. I'm just like starting to get back in. I did a sprint workout this morning at 4:00. But that's like, I'm just starting to get kind of back into it, the speed stuff. But I worked with a coach for about 2 months after all that to kind of get me back.
Yeah.
This. But
wow, very impressive. So you're a long distance marathon runner, and you started Huckleberry Landscape and Property Services. How long have you been in business doing that?
Huckleberry started in 2019. My wife got pregnant, and it was just, again, another one of those, like, there's something inside me. I need to do something a little bit, more elevated and, make a life for myself. I'd worked with this gentleman, this guy that I just really loved. He was just some random local guy that all he did was mow lawns for a living. And I remember chatting with him one time, and he just had a truck and trailer, and all he did was mow lawns and then take the whole winter off. And he was like, dude, I make $100,000 every year. And I was like, you make $100,000 every year mowing lawns by yourself, And then I kind of just ran some numbers, and I was like, that's very easily obtainable, actually. And I've always been one of those people that if you put something in front of me, I'll do it. But I struggle to like put the pieces together. So it was like somebody gave me this thing, and they're like, this is a way to win, And I started with lawn care. And I think after the first year, we had like 2 lawn mowing days or whatever, but I had a background in, my dad owned an excavation and a logging business as a kid. So I was pretty familiar with all that stuff.
Sure.
And then I fought fire my first 10 years out of high school. I was actually on a hot shot crew in Missoula, Montana for 3 seasons. And then I worked on districts like engine crews other than that. So I had a lot of chainsaw experience and that kind of stuff. So, we'd get a windstorm and I'd go out and make a few $100 kind of a thing. But that just tended to be the things, I had those skills, those tended to be the things that people would be like, hey, can you put a gravel bed in? Can you do a patio or a walkway?
Yeah.
It turned into more installations. And we just, no marketing, no nothing, just grassroots. We have doubled up every single year until now. Now we run 2 crews. I have 2 crews out right now doing 2 separate installations. And, it's kind of mind blowing. I always tell everybody, I remember the Toyota Tundra with the utility trailer, and we used to throw the dirt in the back of the utility trailer, and then we take it to the Garden City compost. We have a city place here that they take all our stuff and then grind it up and make compost. And I remember, because we'd load the trailer and then you'd have to unload it. So you'd shovel it in, shovel it out. I remember the first dump trailer, it was just like, oh my Lord, this is heaven. And now we got 2 1-ton pickups, 2 dump trailers, equipment trailer, excavator, 2 skid loaders. We have 3 skid loaders, just different world. Yeah, we're growing, and We don't do any marketing. We're always in the top like 3, 4, 5 on Google, no matter what any of the local competitors are doing. I think we have the most reviews. We're very personable. We wear pink shirts. We don't talk down to people. Sort of that idea of, what we do is serious, but I get tired of this, like, all about landscaping and, a cut above the rest and these names that are just sort of egotistical. And for me, Huckleberry, Trout Creek, Montana, where I'm from, is the Huckleberry capital of Montana. It just felt like we do good work and we work hard, but we don't take ourselves that seriously. We do yard work, Yeah. And we're here to help. And that's just kind of the approach that I sort of wanted to take. And it's been an excellent response from the community.
Wow, that's really cool. So 6 years in business. This is year number 6. You had a couple of crews. Doing any snow removal, or is it all land?
Oh, yeah. About 3 years ago, one of my buddies, he's one of the bigger landscapers in town. We all kind of call him Dad because he's like that. If you need something, you call Justin. Garden City Florescaping, shout out. Those guys have definitely been a resource to me. Justin's, always answers my texts, my calls. He's let me borrow. I remember when he'd let me borrow the Kubota 18 excavator all the time just for nothing, But there was one year that he asked me to do a route for him, a small route, and I did that with one other person. And then from there, it's just kind of continued to build. And now I think we have 36 commercial accounts, and we have a 76 home HOA that we service. So nothing insane, but it supports our 6 people, 7 people handily, gets us through the winter time. And then it's provided a lot of other opportunities with both, the HOA and the property management companies that we work with.
So what's the biggest challenge you've been through? It seems like things run pretty smooth, but I always like to dive in and see, what is out there that really can help the other entrepreneur growing? The guy who's building his business, maybe he's trying to advertise like crazy. What have you been through that in business that was just that moment where you're sitting around the fire, you're at mile 52, 53, and you're thinking this is done, but you pushed through and kept going?
It's funny that you say that because one of the things was actually not related to business at all. It was that Lean Horse Ultra. When I came home from that, I don't know how else to describe it, but dude, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was like, I saw all the holes in my training. I saw the things I wasn't doing and I wasn't accomplishing. And I thought, why am I out here running 100 miles and doing these crazy things if I'm not going to go all the way? Why am I doing 90%? It makes no sense. If you do 90%, you're going to get hurt and you're going to have to walk. And it just kind of translated into my life and business as well. And that was one of the points where it was just like, I think I hired an operations manager not too terribly long after that, and we've been really just hammering into, dialing in our budget and all of our procedures and, client folders and sheets and just everything's super organized. It's not yet, but obviously that's the sort of end goal. But I think the one thing out of all of it, and I can't really pinpoint one specific instance, but if I had any advice for anybody, the biggest thing that I would say is just like anything else in life, when you come to a point where you need to make a decision, don't just make it hastily. When you're trying to decide, am I going to do Bobcat? Am I going to do Caterpillar? Am I going to do Kubota? Whatever I'm doing, go drive them, drive your buddies, check it out, figure out what you're doing, take your time, make that decision. Same thing with when you go meet someone and you're talking to somebody about a job, do you mesh with this person? Are they going to pay you regardless of if you have an agreement? Do you get along with them? Do they hear what you're saying? Do they trust you? Just really buying into all those little, things and making decisions about what you're going to do before you go into it. It's the same thing when you're showing up and you're like, is there access to this property? Can I get in here? Just really feeling out all those little pieces before you actually take something on or pull the trigger. Do you need that diesel pickup? Are you sure you want all diesels, or are you going to convert to gas in a few years? Really think about those things before you just get excited and go get things.
The getting excited thing can happen, right? Like, listen, my goal is to do a full Ironman, right? So I want to do 2.4 in the swim, 112.5 on the bike, and then 26.2 on the run. And, just in thinking about that, I'm thinking about all the cool gear I get to buy for that, right? And I got, no, what you got is fine. Let's get through one first, right? Let's get through this. You don't need to go buy a $15,000 bike. Go buy a $5,000 bike that's used, right? You don't need to, so I love that approach to business. What it really made me think about when you were answering that question was the scenario comes up all the time in business. And as business owners, obviously we want the jobs. We want the work. We have to pay for our expenses. We have to take care of our families. We have to take care of our guys and our crews and our teams.
Yep.
But we run into a situation frequently where we'll meet a customer, and this after you've been doing it for a while. This customer is going to be not cool. They're going to be hardcore. They're going to be super difficult. Like, you can just tell in their personality.
Mm-hmm.
And you might charge the extra 10 grand on the job for you're just going to be a dick fee, right? Like, Just make it simple. And then you get the job. And going into the job that the job is going to be tough. And that you put an extra dollar amount on it because they're going to be difficult. And you get into the job and you do the job, and it's just a nightmare the entire time. And at the end, that 10K is not even really worth it because of all the stress and just nonsense that it puts you through and cause burnout for your teams. What's your advice to the listeners when you were in that situation with that tough customer? Because some people will say, well, if you can't serve the tough customers, you shouldn't be in business. And some people will say, well, just charge the fee and make them pay. What is your philosophy there?
Listen to your heart. It tells you, and that it tells you. David, have you ever walked into a job that turned out that way and not been able to look back and see something where you were like, I saw that. There was that one comment they made. There was that thing they did. There was that one thing. I always know. Know, and then I go through with it. When you recognize that and I apologize, it's so dark. When and you get to that point and that thing comes across your plate, trust your gut. Trust your self-confidence. You're going to get more leads. They're going to come through. It's going to be okay. Say no to that job if that's the way that you feel about it. There's a fine line there, though, too, because, again, not only do we want to be professionals and do the hard jobs and all those other things, sometimes I'll take certain hard jobs because I'm like, I know I can do this, or I'm going to be the one to do this for them. Or I do want the challenge, but there's a difference. There's a difference between a tough customer and someone who's trying to mess with you. If somebody wants to be really detailed, I'm more likely to take them on than if they are, I don't know, own 15 apartment complexes and they're just grilling you about money the entire time. And you're just like, I'm trying to do a really nice job for you. I know that you got it. I'm not trying to ding you here, but this is what it costs. And if you don't want to pay that, then I think that someone else is probably a better fit for you.
Yeah, that's good. So you're weighing the situation out. You're deciding, what you want to do, where you want to work. Are the majority of the jobs you're doing today residential, or are you in the commercial space at all?
Yeah, most of what we do, I would say 10% of what we do is commercial, referrals from local businesses and things like that, mostly from our residential clients. I love residential. I love it. I love going to people's houses and creating things in their backyards. It's not that businesses don't feel the same way about things, but I don't know. There's just something about creating something for that lady in her backyard, and that's going to be where she hangs out and barbecues and has her grandkids. There's so much more at stake. There's so much more involved. Whereas the commercial stuff, again, there can still be a little bit of that, but it just seems like it's more near and dear to them when it's at their house. it's more intimate maybe. And that's just kind of where we've done well. That's been, it's kind of that ain't broke, don't fix it type thing. It's like we just get so many calls for residential that we've kind of fallen into that space. But on the snow removal side of things, I think we have 4 residential accounts. All of that is, so we have a big Forest Service research center out here, the Missoula Fire Sciences Lab and Montana Technology and Development Center.
Yeah.
We do that, and then we do another large Forest Service depot in the middle of town. So we have some government stuff, and then, just like your standard, like box store type stuff, a couple of gyms and things like that. But most of our snow removal is commercial. I just find the commercial stuff to be easier in getting.
Yeah, totally.
They want it. They know they need it. They don't want people to fall, whereas the residential people want to play that game. Can you come at 3 inches, 4 inches? And I'm like, no, not really.
Nope.
We roll.
I love the business. Montana is a tough place. Like I don't care where you are in the world. Montana is a tough place to live. Like, it's hot in the summer. It's cold in the winter. It's windy. I mean, I have property in Great Falls, and I spend some time in Great Falls, and I'm going to tell you, it's brutal. Every year, my property takes a beating. It gets ice dams on the roof. It's minus 50 degrees. I mean, like, it is just, like, it's definitely, like, I mean, I'm going to say like this, like, there's comfort, obviously, of big cities, Missoula, Bozeman, Great Falls, whatever. And you've got definitely, city influence and city life, but in a lot of ways, it's still untamed wild territory, And so that's a different way of life. What is the Montana way of life versus what you see in other parts of the country?
It's very utilitarian, and you did kind of hit the nail on the head in that, especially Missoula, we're kind of the only liberal city in Montana. So especially during COVID and some of those types of things, like if you were moving to Montana and you leaned at all that direction, they came here. So we do have a significant population of people that are not from here. And that has brought in, a number of different things from services to, it's made it a little more city-like. We are, however, known for not plowing our roads. That's a big one. You do not get around Missoula without 4-wheel drive in the winter. We spend money on taxes and all these things and whatnot, but there's just too many little streets and weird cul-de-sacs, and we just don't have the infrastructure set up to do it, So it's kind of being in the city is a combination of those two things. We have a little bit of the outside world type stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty Montana. And it's just really utilitarian. It's just really like you take care of yourself, you don't expect other people to do things for you. And I don't even mean that in a bad way. It's just there's certain things that you're just not going to get some sort of a service. Like if I'm out and I break down doing something out in the woods, it's like I don't wait for a car to come or try to get a signal or whatever. I have to figure out how to fix my truck and get out of there because I might not see anybody.
That's right. Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota. In my mind, and Alaska. I'm gonna throw Alaska in there for sure. These are the 5 toughest states in the union in my purview, right? Like it's just they're tough. They're rugged, tough states, and they aren't as popularized. Like even though Missoula is the capital, there's still not a ton of people that are living in Missoula, right? So
there's nothing outside of it,
right? It's what, an hour and a half, 2 hours to the next major city, something like that, So like you're growing a business in a very concentrated market. Like it is very, very concentrated. So like I ask because like, let's just say you're in Seattle, like, if you screw up a job in Seattle, then no one knows. It doesn't matter. Hey, you're going to screw up a job. Doesn't matter. Hey, you're going to screw up another job. Doesn't matter. Like there's companies that they can just survive even and they do a mediocre job. But in a city like, Missoula or Great Falls or Bozeman, where it is so concentrated. And, your name, your reputation, like you're able to grow this business word of mouth. That's because you did a good job. In Seattle, you couldn't do that. No matter how good of a job you did, your work would dry up just because of there's so much competition. There's so much out there. So how do you build a reputation? How do you build a brand and a business in that market? What have you done to double every year for the last 6 years?
It's a combination of accountability and desire. I hate saying it, David. I hate saying it all the time. And me and my operations manager talk about this. I don't know what it's like in your area, but the bar here is so disgustingly low. It's so low. The work is not great. No one answers their phone. No one calls you back. I will literally show up to people's houses and they will like hire me and be stoked that I'm there because I answered my phone and came to my meeting. It's the Wild West out here. Missoula's just grown in leaps and bounds. And like I said, we got people from Maryland and Texas and all these other places, and they're looking for services, and the amount of companies available, A, has not been able to keep up. And then B, we just live in a time where, if I was 18 and I had excellent computer skills, I probably wouldn't be a landscaper either, So there's such a demand for us blue collar people now, and there's so few of us. There's more people in this town that want us to do the work for them than there are that want to get paid to do it. So the combination of that and then being super accountable, it's almost like we could do it without being accountable, and we don't. And we just do it right. I always come back. I always make things right. You will never, ever do everything perfectly. Never.
No, it's impossible.
What are you going to do when you screw up? What are you going to do when you get asked to come back? How are you going to handle that? If you handle that properly, what was it? Denzel Washington, remember the Titans? Remember that movie?
Yeah. Progress, not perfection.
None of you are perfect, but this team will be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
None of our jobs, none of our actions will be perfect, but the end job, what we leave there, will be perfect.
Mm.
There will be screw ups, but we will come back and we will fix them.
I love that. That's a great quote. I'm writing that down. The end job will be perfect. I love that dedication that you've got. I think that's excellent. I loved how you explained that and broke that down, because I think that is what's missing in business, and I think so many people want to portray that their business is perfect, and it's not. No business is. We have so many things behind the scenes that we're working on and trying to fix, and new systems and new processes and accounting and this. And I mean, there's so many little holes in business. And you know what? You see it in big businesses, right? Like you can see a Fortune 500 company make a $2 million missed payment, right? Like, how do they do that? How does that happen? You look at the Fortune 500 list from 1955, the original 500 companies on that list. I want to say the last time I looked at it, there was like 55 remaining.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right? They don't last because quality is not there. Accountability is not there. I love what you said about accountability. How do you hold your team accountable? Like, what are some of the things that you've done to build a team that is accountable, or you've instilled that into your culture?
I mean, like you just said, instilling and building culture. It's all about making people understand what's happening. When I interview people and I go through the process, it's not like, hey, do you want a job landscaping this summer? It's like, first of all, I pay very well. And that's helped me get good people. I know for a fact that I'm significantly above a number of other landscapers in town. And actually some of the people that are on my staff interviewed for a lot of these other companies. And I was like $3-4 more an hour. But when we have our interview and we sit down and I talk to these guys and gals, whoever it is, I always say, I know you're not the owner, but what you put into this, you will get out of it. I only need so much. I have what I need now. I don't need a bunch of other stuff. I want to build something for all of us. I want to build this thing that provides us with health insurance and money and time to be with our kids, maternity leave, whatever it is that we're looking for. And the only way that I can do that is if we do these things. You know, we do a 4-10 schedule. So I tell those guys, I'm like, I want 4-10s out of you. I want 4 good 10-hour days, because when you're missing Fridays, you really got to make sure that those 4 days are dialed.
Yep.
So we take minimal time off, and we try to do things on our days off. We talk a lot about our goals and where we're trying to go. Though I'm the owner and I make a lot of those decisions, I do take a lot of input from people, and I try to steer things where, at least from their standpoint, where, you know, we want that to be. I try to make a home for them, and I try to make them feel important, because they're as important as I am. And it, you know, it's hard. It's hard to like to ring the bell in their head. But you know, at the end of the year when I hand out a bonus, or there's just certain little things that happen every once in a while. They're like, oh, okay, I get this Jake guy now. He means it, you know.
Yeah.
And you just have to get to those points, you know, where it's like, oh, hey, Bill gave you a $500 bonus for that job that you did up at his house. That'll be on your next paycheck. I could have kept that. I could have not said anything about it. Bill didn't say anything to them. You know, I always make sure they get what's coming to them. I always make sure they get what's theirs. I provide opportunities for them. I try to, you know, make it so they can learn the trade. Just making them understand that the more that they put into it, the better it's going to be for them. And then making sure when you have those opportunities to talk the talk.
That's awesome. I love the business that you're building. I think it's something for other businesses to aspire to. I think it's great what you're creating down there. I've only got a couple of more questions left. You've been so gracious with your time. One or two is like, or three, I don't know which one it is. It's going to be one of these. But listen, I'm going to do a 100-mile race one day, and
Yes,
when I do it, you know, I want to do one together, right?
yeah,
I want
dude,
to
I'll
hook
come
up and
through.
do it. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll smoke me, I'm sure, but
Never know.
you know, I got to run my race, which is slower than your race. I'm sure of it, just right off the bat.
Right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's all time and training and growth. But that is on my list, right? Is to knock out an ultra marathon. Like I want to, you know, I want to do that. I mean, I think it's a huge challenge, and it's a huge mental challenge. I mean, you know, 15 minutes a mile, 14 minutes a mile, these are walking paces. I know that you fluctuate in, like you say, you got a 9 and 8, and then, you know, maybe you've got a 20 or 22, or you lost 3 hours at an aid station. Like there's these complexities that come into it. But when you break it down, you know, you've got that time, and, you know, it just becomes this mental, can I mentally knock out a 100-mile race? Can I mentally push through, you know, an ultra marathon? And that's something, man, I definitely, you know, want to achieve that. Like that's on my list of tough things. I think if we're always pushing through to like these tough things, it always keeps us growing. So, you know, my goal is to get where you are. Like that's something that I want to aspire to. Being a guy that's done a couple hundred ultras, what's next? What's the next big thing out there? Like what tops 100, or what pushes you harder than 100? I know like you can do 100, and then you can do 100, and you can do 100, but I got a friend of mine who does hundreds, and well, I won't say he's a friend of mine, but he's my doctor. He's my foot doctor, right? So I see him all the time in this net, and he's been doing hundreds, and so he's gonna do a race from like the bottom of California, right where it like touches into Mexico, all the way up into Washington.
Wow.
Right? Like he's going through the mountains, and he's going to be,
Yep.
and there's like these certain places where they're going to bring in food and aid stations, and he's got to pack and train. And like, this is like this, I don't know, man, like 2-month thing he's doing, right? Where he's just going all the way up, right? Like, and I think to myself, wow, that's incredible. Or you look at somebody who's doing the 7 summits, or, you know, whatnot. What have you thought about what's next, or is there something next, or are you just kind of content with where you're at?
I don't think I'm ever content with where I'm at. it's a little bit of a problem for me, and I definitely am trying to work on like being in the moment and like the meditation end of things a little bit more. But I'm always kind of like looking out to I mean, like I said, I signed up for the 100 before I ran the 50. Like I was doing it. You know, um, yeah. Then the next step is I want my 24-hour race, and that's what I'm trying to do in Custer, South Dakota on August 15th. Is I want my 24-hour 100 race. Again, like you said, it's 14:10 a mile. It's
Yeah.
not the fastest person that wins the race. It's the person that goes the least slow. You got to keep moving, stop the least.
Yep.
So I want my 24-hour race. And then after that, I think I'm going to do some speed work, and I'll probably do some shorter stuff and just kind of build up my VO2 max and my actual speed a little bit. And then after that, there's two things. One, when I got hurt and I had all the neuropathy stuff happened, I started trying to figure out what was going to be next if there was no more. And I found out that, funny enough, Flathead Lake, which is just north of me, 2 hours, there's only 6 people that have swam the 28 miles from south to north tip. So there's only 6 people that have done that, and it's right in my back door. That's one thing that I've been thinking about. That'd be a 24+ hour swim. And then
That's savage. That's savage for sure.
It's savage, dude. There's no stopping, and I mean, you're in the water. But if that Naiad lady can swim from Cuba to Florida, I should be able to swim across Flathead Lake. It's possible. You can do it. And then I highly encourage you after this to jump on YouTube and look up Max Jolliffe's video King of Moab, where he wins the Moab 240 last year.
Okay.
You will cry. It's amazing. It's so inspiring. That race could be fun.
So that's a 240-mile race?
240-mile race. He did it 69 hours and 22 minutes for the win.
Savage.
Savage,
man. Savage.
But, just something like that, something into that next step. 100 miles is insane, and everybody talks about it like that. But I'm telling you, after you do it, especially like a couple times, it sounds insane, but it's just running all day and all night. It's like you run all day, you run all night, and you sleep. You're so delirious on the second half of everything anyway. You're not processing time or all these things that you're moving. I'm telling you, once you hit like 26, 30 hours, you could just go forever anyway until you need sleep because you're just so messed up. You are. I mean, it's just, I remember I went home after the 100 and you think you just fall asleep. I think I was awake for like 12 hours because my clock was just like,
screwed up.
Yeah, going crazy. But yeah, I think just something, double up again, Cowboy 200, the Moab 240, Cocodona 250. And I might run this next 100 and be like, that was awesome. I just want to go faster. I'm not sure, but those are the things that are bouncing around my mind.
All right, that's cool. Well, it doesn't have to, like, I kind of put it in, my mind, like there's some things I want to do. Like I'm thinking about the 7 summits. Is that something I want to do? Do I want to do 100. I definitely want to do that. Yeah. I'm just thinking about what it is. And you got, sometimes it takes a couple of years to think about these things before it actually you're training and you're working and you're building. So, it's becoming what it is. All right. I got 2 questions left. One, tip for entrepreneurs. Give us an entrepreneurial tip that's going to help the guy grow in his business, build in his business, or even the guy who's been in business for a long time. What's most important to you?
Trust your gut. Don't give up, and follow every procedure that you can follow and that you can find. Make sure you have a budget. Make sure you register with all the different places you need to register with. Make sure that you are paying your taxes right. You have a good bookkeeper. I think just make sure that things are organized. And then once they are organized, be ready to get hypothermia at mile 52 and be ready for plows to break and things to happen and jobs to go late, and just get in a habit of don't let it go. Don't not get better from it, but it's going to happen. And just, I struggle with this every day. You know, it's like, just be the chaos coordinator, just work your way through it, get it done, because the other person is going to not do that and they're going to quit, and you're going to be the one that still has a company, and then you're going to get their jobs.
Boom. I love it. Excellent advice. All right, last question. You've got a whiteboard. It's a billboard. Everybody can drive it by it. It's on the side of the freeway. It's completely blank, and it gets your sentence, your phrase, your mission for life. What are you sharing with the world?
Whatever it is, you can do it.
Whatever it is, you can do it. Don't quit.
If you want it and it's something you want to do, it's not just on TV. It's not just a pipe dream. If you want it, I mean, if you're 50 and you want to play in the NBA, you know, there's some limitations there, but, you know, you can aspire to do dang near anything that you want to do, and you can do things that people have not done.
Man, that is awesome. I love it. You're on social media. Where can people find you on social media? You're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of that?
Yeah. So for me personally, just Jake Gerstenberger on Facebook, and then at JKEG on Instagram. And then for the business, it's Huckleberry Landscape and Property Services on Facebook, at HBLSPS, like Huckleberry Landscape Property Service on Instagram. And then our website's HBLSPS.com. And that's pretty much it. You know, even for like a nowadays type thing, we looked at all the different platforms and all the things that were out there, and we just keep it pretty simple. I actually don't have any social media. Like if you posted on if you said, hey, Jake, nice run on my stuff, I'll check that about every 2 weeks. That's on my other phone. I kind of stay off.
Yeah.
It's like the gear thing you talked about. You know, it's like, I don't need all the best stuff, all the prestige. I just need a pair of shoes.
Right. I love it. All right. Well, that's how you get a hold of Jake. That's how you find him. Check out his work. If you're in Missoula and you need snow removal, you need general contracting, check him out. Fabulous work, accountability. And at the end, the job will be perfect. I love that. That's a great way to roll. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. Follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, anywhere we're at social media. I'm hanging out 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday. We are live and on point and having a great fun. Jake, it has been incredible hanging out with you. If you like the show, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box. We will get back to you. Jake, such an honor to chat with you, man. It was fantastic. The time went by super fast. I loved everything you had to say. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Mike Bott from Frost Solutions, one of the owners of the company. What we do is provide a mini weather station to give you a tailored forecast to those particular locations, so you know where and when and what to do in those parts of town. You know, there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different ways that people can experience tremendous value having a technology like this.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.